Thank you. In May 2007, a trip to the Sun turned an anonymous British family into people who were nationally and internationally known. Kate and Gerry McCann's eldest daughter, Madeleine, went missing in Portugal. Initial media support turned into suspicion. The McCann's privacy was treated with contempt by sections of the press who stopped at nothing to write something, anything, about the couple. When they attended the Leveson inquiry, the McCanns were clear on why they had decided to take part.
A system has to be put in place to protect ordinary people from the damage that the media can cause.
When it's your voice against the powerful media, it just doesn't hold weight. And, we're desperately shouting out internally, please stop what you're doing. We're trying to find our daughter and you were stopping our chances of finding her.
Among the worst offenders, newspapers owned by the Express Group. The McCanns were shown some of their stories.
That's nothing short of disgusting.
And I think this same journalist, if memory serves right, also said we stored her body in a freezer.
The News of the World got hold of a copy of Kate McCann's private diary and published it without telling her.
It was my only way of communicating with Madeleine. And for me, there was absolutely no respect shown for me as a grieving mother or as a human being.
By taking part in Leveson, the McCanns hoped that their testimony would help bring about a change in the law, a new press regulator with legal backing. Kate and Gerry McCann, you heard John Witherow just now, editor of The Times, former editor of the Sunday Times, saying that from all his private discussions, it seems like the political parties are coalescing around this royal charter idea. If that's what we end up with, was going to Leveson a waste of your time?
I think it certainly won't be what we were hoping to achieve, and very much disagree with John that this is what Leveson is tough. I think Leveson has actually been quite generous to the press, and more than the behaviour or certain sections of the media deserve, really. They're getting a last chance at self-regulation, which for me was actually a step too far.
Can you explain from your point of view, what's the practical difference between what Leveson wanted and what seems to be the compromise? What difference does that make?
I've got three concerns at the minute. The first is the transparency. The inquiry was open. You could see what was going on. Leveson's reviewed all the evidence. And what's happened in the last 2.5 months is exactly what you've talked about, where we're having a number of private meetings. The minutes are not published. The discussions are not published. And then that leads to serious concerns about independence of what is being proposed, because a major part of Leveson was acknowledging that the press had got too close to politicians. And the third concern for us and what is being proposed is that we're going to end up with sub-Leveson recommendations, really, particularly around independence, both of the board who are going to oversee it and the fact that there should be complete independence of the appointments of that board.
I'm struck by something you are quoted as saying, Gerry. The Leveson package, including legal underpinning, is the minimum acceptable compromise for us. I just wonder if it was up to you, if they gave you the power to draft something, the future of the press, what would you do?
To be honest, I've already said this to you, that I feel that the press has lost its entitlement to self-regulation over many, many years, and I would have liked to have seen actually statutory regulation and not self-regulation.
But I get the impression if it was up to you, you'd go much further. And,
well, absolutely.
People might not blame you. What would you do?
Well, no, I would make it very much that it wasn't self-regulated. There would be independent regulation.
I think when we saw the Leveson recommendations, we probably thought for us it was probably a 7 out of 10. And obviously it's been a painstaking process, and I think Lord Leveson has come up with something that's very balanced, and he's trying to be as fair as possible to every party involved. But actually I think what the government are proposing with this charter, which I have to say charter body is overseen by ministers for a start, which again takes away the independence. It's basically a compromise of a compromise. Yeah. And why do the press, why do the government not want to be accountable like everybody else? I mean, the press are the first to hold people in authority to account.
Have you noticed any improvement in the press since Leveson?
It's very difficult to say that because you only know about your own individual circumstances.
Well, even there, I mean, has things been better?
Obviously, the situation for us, we still have episodes where things are published which we would much prefer weren't published. There's been a recent headline front page of a Sunday newspaper about a potential lead in Madeline's case, and it hadn't been fully explored. And it's something that we raised at Leveson, that Madeline and her safety is often treated with complete contempt. And we have no redress currently. And I would have concerns that if the editors get what they want, which is how complaints are dealt with, it would only be certain complaints and they could decide which ones would come. And one of the things that we are very, very concerned with and is about accuracy and standards and consideration for the public. We want the regulator to be able to protect the interests of the public.
And the recent story about Madeline that you were unhappy with, did you try and speak to the paper concerned?
Yeah, I wrote to the editor of the newspaper and explained my concerns, and I have to say I got a reply back which made my blood boil. It was basically telling me that they knew what was best for Madeline, that they knew best what was for missing children. So despite what we as parents thought, despite what the Metropolitan Police thought, they knew what was best. And that is really concerning. Post-Leveson inquiry, that this is the kind of response we're getting. I believe if the Royal Charter goes through, we'll be no better off. And this is one opportunity now, which might not come again. And I think the general public deserve to know what's happening, because, as Gerry said, there's been a total lack of transparency. And what the government is proposing is not what Leveson has proposed.
Do you have much hope that the change you want will come in?
I've not given up hope. I think the first thing is to say I think the vast majority of MPs actually are fully supportive of Leveson. And I've mentioned this before, but if our parliamentarians want to redeem themselves in the public light, they know that the right thing is to implement Leveson in full. Not a compromise, not a sop to the editors.
Right. Kate and Gerry McCann, thank you both.
Thank you.